We're here with Captain Tom Phelan, who's a resident of Hollywood, lived in the county, St. Mary's County, for 30 years. He's running for sheriff of St. Mary's County, and in the background is the historic St. Clements Island. Captain, I'd like to ask you one question for the readers of the Chesapeake Today and the viewers of this video. Tell us about the importance of the Bill of Rights to you as a naval officer and as in running for sheriff. Okay.
Certainly, even as a naval officer or as a citizens of St. Mary's County, the Bill of Rights is the protection that is afforded by our founding fathers to protect all the citizens here in the United States. It's one of those series of things that makes our country great, makes our country free. From the right to free speech, the right to bear arms, the right not to incriminate yourself, and the right to against unreasonable search and seizures. I mean, those apply not only to in the military, because that's what I did almost 27 years in, to protect those Bill of Rights and protect the our way of life here in the United States. So, that's kind of where I feel, or where the Bill of Rights and where those fit in with what I did in the military, and what I'll do as the sheriff of St. Mary's County is continue that level of protection of those individual rights for the citizens of St. Mary's County.
And what will you do as sheriff to enforce that your deputies and your officers respect the Bill of Rights?
Well, certainly I have to make sure that they're well trained in the rules of law, so that they understand, when they're out on the road or they're on a call, that they can apply those standards correctly. As I've done in just about in my career in the military, when I go to a different organization or a different group, you have to spend some time learning about how they run things, what their processes are, how they're organized, and how their training programs go, so that I can. And you don't go in there to make large changes to begin with. You take in the best information you can. You surround yourself with some good people that are very knowledgeable in the current organization, and then see where you can potentially make changes or tweak things, or take some ideas that they want to some of the people that are really doing the job understand, because those are the ones that understand where the issues are and can propose solutions and propose ideas that may make the the office and the department work a lot better.
Tom Phelan is running for St. Mary's County Sheriff. He is opposing Tim Cameron, who's running for an unprecedented fourth term. Tom, could you give the readers of the Chesapeake Today and the viewers of this video a little bit of an idea of what has motivated your run, and how you think being from the outside would help you and play to the advantage of delivering law enforcement in a better way in St. Mary's County?
Sure. In my almost 27 years of experience in the Navy, where we would move almost every 3 to 4 years, and you go to a new command or new office, it's important to have that a fresh perspective, or bringing in some new ideas and new leadership. And that's what I would certainly bring to this office there. I've led squadrons from 150 to full wings of 750 plus people. So I know how a large organization runs. I understand how you can motivate people, and it's that perspective that I can bring to the sheriff's office here in St. Mary's County, because I have those I had those organizational skills and the leadership skills that I've developed since I was a junior officer, from in the early 80s to leading an operational squadron in a combat zone, of what motivates people, and how to lead them to make yourself an effective and efficient organization.
Tom Phelan is a Republican candidate for sheriff in St. Mary's County, Maryland in 2018. Tom, your opponent, the incumbent sheriff, he pointed to experience, and he talked about his education being at a police academy instead of being at, like you went to, the Naval Academy. Can you describe how you expect your experience would be very substantial in helping the cause of safety and crime and justice being delivered in St. Mary's County, where we've seen things like the Sheriff's Department actually shooting into homes in Wildwood, raiding newsstands on the night before the election, and nothing seemingly being done about it to discipline these people. How would you intend to provide your experience to lead the department?
Well, thank you for that question, Ken. I did go to the Naval Academy. They took a fresh kid right out of high school, 18 years old. I grew up in the state of California, came back here to Maryland, the night before induction day, and that training started the very next day with, basic, you could call it boot camp for the summer. Then it turned into an academic, 4 years of academics, with a very high workload there. But we were always in a military organization, in a structured situation or structured environment, with military order. Well, following that, I go to flight training. So my whole career has been in learning and training modes. Where I was either on the receiving end or I was an instructor and pass that information on to more junior personnel, whether I was crewed with them in an airplane or in our squadron in the maintenance department, and taking young sailors that had just joined the Navy. And so you try and show them, how, what the mission of the squadron is and what their goals are, and point them in the right direction, motivate them, to, one, always, look out for themselves, look out for their fellow shipmates, and that's what I would certainly bring, those ideas and that, mentality to the sheriff's office here, where, not only are you trying to take care of, your fellow officers, but you got to take care of the community, you got to take care of the citizens of the county, and hold everybody accountable. I mean, there's no question that we have to hold our police officers and sheriff's deputies to the highest standards, and there's certainly no, but then again, everybody makes a mistake here and there and stuff. I mean, I myself have been mentored, counseled, scolded, for things that I either unintentionally did. Usually it's unintentional because you didn't have, the right training or the right tools to do that and stuff. So you have to train and equip everybody, and then hold them accountable, as I did throughout my, long career in the Navy.
We're here with Tom Phelan, who's a Republican candidate for the office of Sheriff in St. Mary's County, Maryland. He's sitting here in the background is the historic St. Clements Island and the Potomac River. Tom, you're running for sheriff, and in recent years, there's been two instances in which the debate the other night played a role. The sheriff talked about absolute black and white issue of truthfulness. Yet we've had a couple of recent incidents. In 2002, the Sheriff's Department had $80,000 worth of building materials vanish in police property held. The state prosecutor issued a report to the sheriff, to the state's attorney, which has never been released to the public. Would you release that report to the public? It's 2018. If it names people in the agency, isn't it about time that people know that?
Yes, absolutely. I, for one, would also like to have to read that and understand, what went on back in 2002, 2003, and why hasn't it been released? I don't have any history with the sheriff's office or who was involved in that situation and in that incident stuff, but there's no reason that it could not be released, and let the public and the community know exactly what went on and what is part of that report.
A second question regarding truthfulness is directed involving the sheriff himself. He said in no uncertain terms that a police agency has to have honesty. Yet we had a recent incident at Wildwood where police training was taking place at a farm next to the Wildwood housing development, and weapon fire from the sheriff's deputies who were firing penetrated a house in Wildwood and came within a few feet of a crib where a baby was sleeping. Sheriff Cameron said he was mortified and he would soon release the report on that, but he never has. Will you release that report?
Yes, absolutely. There's, again, just as in the previous incident that you mentioned, I mean, there's, that the community needs to know, what went wrong, what was, and who was involved, so that appropriate action can be taken. I don't know whether appropriate action was taken internal to the office or not. So again, I would like to read it, and I would certainly release it.
Tom Phelan is a Republican candidate for sheriff in the St. Mary's County sheriff's race in the primary, June 26. Tom, with the recent murder and shooting of another student at Gray Mills High School, it showed how vulnerable the schools are to the introduction of a gun, as well as the incident of an 8-year-old bringing her parents' gun to school at Park Hall. What will you do to advocate to the county commissioners to appropriate the needed funds to harden the schools with extra school resource officers and metal detectors?
Okay, it really gets into the budgetary process that the sheriff's office would go through, because you could define what those requirements are for the 30+ schools and the amount of protection that they would need. So you can define that in both the labor and training and costs involved, and then bring that forward as a top priority to the county commissioners as part of your budget. Fully understand that something's going to probably have to give on the other end as far as the sheriff's office budget goes, because there's potentially because there's going to be competing priorities for the county commissioners to allocate their budget to, knowing full well that the county commissioners do have a lot of discretion, and whether it's their rainy day fund that's out there, or some other priority that they could allocate to the issue of school safety, because that presence of those officers certainly is a needed deterrent to a student or anybody coming into our school to attack our kids in the school system. But it's laying that out from a requirement standpoint, much like I did when I was a program manager in the Navy, having to go up to the Pentagon to define the requirements for my programs and see where the line would be drawn, and then defend that in front of your budget authority. Here it's the county commissioners. Then once you're allocated that, then you have to go execute it properly, and then you'll be accountable for that budget. So in that regards, that's how I would take on that issue of school safety, to have the personnel to protect each of our schools.
Tom Phelan, running for sheriff, St. Mary's County, Republican primary. Tom, your opponent, the incumbent sheriff, running for an unprecedented 4th term, he cites the reason he's running again is because he needs to plan succession to turn the agency over to another sheriff 4 years from now. He also points to the fact that his command staff is all going to leave next year. How do you view that situation unfolding?
Well, certainly with anybody's career, you kind of realize, when you want to retire, or when you're supposed to retire, or that it's time to retire. So in that regards, there'll be certainly well qualified people that are in the ranks there, that are more than willing to learn and step up and take on those added responsibilities in a leadership role, for the sheriff's office. So the fact that his command staff is deciding to retire the next 2 years is kind of immaterial to a succession plan, because there will be qualified people, to fill the billets and fill the bill.
Tom Phelan, candidate for sheriff. The St. Mary's County Sheriff's Department in the last 12 years has had a constant problem with attrition. People are trained, paid by the taxpayers to go undergo their training at a cost of about $150,000 apiece. They stick around for 2-3 years and then they leave, sometimes even go to neighboring sheriff's departments. What will you do to put a stop to that and stop the attrition and make the department more efficient?
Well, the retention of the officers and the deputies is certainly would be one of my top priorities, because you have to have adequate personnel to handle the public safety aspects, whether it's school safety, drug enforcement, or traffic. And it really all starts at the top with some ineffective and what I would call almost inept leadership that drives these deputies to move on to another profession. And there's no, one thing that I would probably try and initiate is, some sort of, I wouldn't necessarily call it payback time, but if you put them through the academy, they would, have a kind of a minimum obligated service. You're not going to keep everybody. So many people are going to decide that this profession is not what they want to do for their life's work. But there are some of them that have left because there is no top-level support, or they're not in that what you could call the good old boy network of Sheriff Cameron and some of his command staff. So if they don't fit in with that, it makes their life miserable while they're working, and I don't blame them for leaving. So you turn that around, and I think you can get some folks to stay here, some good quality of life for the deputies, and turn this way around.
Tom Phelan, running for St. Mary's County Sheriff. We know of 2 assistant sheriffs that Tim Cameron has had. One assistant sheriff recently was in uniform at a county commissioners meeting and berated the county commissioners over funding issues. The other assistant sheriff that he has appointed was condemned by the United States Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in a decision that was upheld by the Supreme Court that they violated the rights of a newspaper to put newspapers out the day before the election and have them read by the readers. So that's his idea of picking people as assistant sheriff. How will you do that different?
Well, I would certainly look for an individual that is well versed in in law enforcement. Wouldn't be somebody that didn't have a background in law enforcement, because, as everyone knows, and as I've answered multiple times, do I have any law enforcement experience? That answer is no. So I would need to surround myself with that assistant sheriff who is very knowledgeable in policy, procedures, and integrity of a sheriff's office. And that would be somebody that I would need as my right-hand person in the sheriff's office.
Tom, can you point to a particular part of your experience in the military that specifically prepares you for this command post of being sheriff?
Yes, absolutely. As I came up through the ranks in the Navy there, you get increasing level of jobs and responsibility, and then to get further in your career, there's a rigorous selection process that is based on proven performance in leadership roles and results, in the jobs that you've had. You're ranked against your peers, so only the top of the crop, get promoted or get the good jobs or get selected for command leadership and command positions. I think that is a great example of what will do me well as Sheriff of St. Mary's County.
Tom Phelan, candidate for St. Mary's County Sheriff. There's been a lot of criticism of Sheriff Cameron's decision to encrypt emergency frequencies and not put out, where the public can hear it on their scanners, reports of an armed robbery or burglary in process or things like that, where citizens can phone in citizen reports. They say all day long, we want the public to be involved, but then they cut off this lifeline of information to the public. And also the state police can't handle it. Well, how will you view true cooperation with the public on emergency broadcasts and with the state police?
Certainly you need to involve the state police in just about every operation here. I mean, there are teammates here in the county and in the state. So if you don't have that cooperation between the agencies, that'd be something I would certainly want to work on. With regards to encrypted versus unencrypted radios, certainly the initial calls that go out could probably be, unencrypted. So you are alerting the public to what's going on. The next step is, to either switch to a secure side of the radio. A lot of the deputies are now, computer dispatch, so they have their computers on, so they're getting dispatched by the dispatchers through their computers, and the radio may not even go off. The flip side of that is, are you alerting the bad guys to, where the position of where the help is coming from? That they're, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes out from an assist there. So there is a little bit of a double-edged sword there, but I think you could compromise with that is, for people that want to know, need to know, and like to listen, they could do that. Some of those initial broadcast calls unencrypted.
Tom, we have in St. Mary's County, there's a very bad traffic problem on the main avenues running into the Naval Air Station. Can you provide adequate traffic enforcement and adequate crime control for burglaries, theft from vehicles, and those kind of incidents going on in our residential areas? Is this an either-or thing, or can you do both?
I think you can do a little bit of both. Certainly the highest traffic problems are in the mornings and in the afternoons, going to and from the base. But the rest of the shift hours, could be done, doing that, crime prevention, crime investigations, in conjunction with, certainly the traffic piece of things could be in conjunction with and teaming with the state police, for just a mere presence out on the roads there. But yes, I think you could do a little bit of both. If you had, certainly I'll go back to the retention of adequate personnel. I mean, or reassigning priorities of where the officers and deputies are working.
Tom Phelan, candidate for sheriff in the Republican primary, St. Mary's County. Your opponent has always pointed out to all these blue ribbon panels and commissions and special things he's appointed to by the governor at various times since he took office as showing how he relates to and gains experience, but he's constantly out of the county doing these things. How will you spend your focus and put your focus as elected as sheriff?
Well, certainly I think the sheriff is the face of the department to the community. And that should be one of the primary focuses that the sheriff ought to be doing. He ought to be out and about in the community, visible, present, communicating with the citizens of the county. It's his job to run the office and be the leader there, and you can't do that if you're not in the community, in the county, whether it's at an event. There are events every weekend or every night around the county here that he could be at, just to show some interest in what this county does and how they live.